May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. I want to begin this morning with a poem by Jan Phillips. And many of you will remember that Jan spent a weekend and a bit with us here last spring. And this is from her book entitled, There Are Burning Bushes Everywhere. The name of the poem is, What Does It Matter? What does it matter, the myths of old, if they don't feed the soul and fire us up when we take them in? What does it matter if God exists, or Jesus rose, or Eve ate an apple, if in our time we allow hungry children, human trafficking, shunning of gays and Muslims and homeless by the people of God? What do I care about church or religion when they don't lead to justice or mercy or truth? I am here to live out the meaning of God, not to argue about what God means. Don't make me laugh with that pompous talk about true religion. Get up on your feet and do something. Show me what it looks like to be a believer. What does it matter? It seems to me that the words of this poem could easily have been Jesus' words to Peter following his command, "Get behind me, Satan." Why? Because Peter, like all the disciples it seems, even in the living presence of Jesus, this Jesus who lived and taught that love is the only way to really be in the world, this Peter still was more concerned about not offending the culture and not making waves that might cause some hardship for Jesus and his followers. Richard Rohr says, Jesus clearly taught his followers about surrender, suffering, humility, servant leadership, and nonviolence, all in the name of love. They resisted him every single time, even though Jesus made the journey himself and said, "Follow me." So Rohr continues, but Christians, even today, have preferred to hear something Jesus never said. Worship me. Worship of Jesus is rather harmless and risk-free. Following Jesus changes everything. I would suggest that the evolution of the Christian church from a mere generation after Jesus lived to the present day has been a movement away from the life and teachings of Jesus. Away from a heart-centered and love-centered way of living towards a dualistic and ego-centered way of living. We in this age have become victims of an intellectualized religious experience, where right beliefs attempt to make us feel pure and saved and moral and superior. It is why we so often choose to think of God as separate and far away, even better than us, because our mind and our ego can handle that more easily than opening our heart, opening our soul to the simple reality that the God Spirit is present, incarnate, and active in all of life if we let it. I turn to Rohr again, who says, God cannot be known intellectually. God can only be known in the act of love. God can only be experienced in communion, not the ritual, but the relationship. This is why Jesus commands us to move toward love and fully abide there. So Rohr continues, love is like a living organism, an active force field upon which we can rely, from which we can draw, and which we can allow to pass through us. It is this understanding of love as the center of life that causes Jesus to say, "Get behind me, Satan. You are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." Jesus is saying that we are letting our egos rather than our hearts determine our journey. And so he says that if we want to follow, if we really want to follow, we need to let go of ego and take up our own crosses, not his, and follow by living love-centered, heart-centered lives as much of the time as we can. It's pretty clear from Paul's words to the Romans that Paul gets this. And he tries to encourage those early church folk to get it too. He reminds them because human beings forever have allowed ego to determine their life journey with little attention given to those deeper yearnings in our hearts. And so Paul tells them, let love be genuine. Hold to what is good and be ardent in spirit. It seems to me that religions of all stripes is nearing a cliff's edge. I was heartbroken listening to CBC on the way in this morning, where it's the Buddhists that are trying to completely massacre the Muslims in Myanmar. We've always held Buddhists up as somehow being different from the rest of us that have fought so much in our religious traditions. And here's another one. But it seems to me that religions of all stripes are nearing a cliff's edge. For Christianity, for our religious faith, our ongoing movement away from the teachings of Jesus takes us ever closest to a great fall. And it will take a massive change in direction to find our way back to that center. Jan Phillips said, "We are here to live out the meaning of God. Or are we simply here to defend a dying institution? Will love or right belief be the path we choose? I know that love lives here. That's why I have that sign. It's to remind us, love lives here. And I know that because I experience it over and over and over again. And I long, and I yearn to be part of a community that is more deeply committed to imitating Jesus than worshiping him. It is living love-centered lives in a love-centered community that Jesus, in fact, commands us to do and be. It's never a suggestion. He commands it. For that is, my friends, the heart, the very heart of discipleship.